As mentioned in a previous video, my oldest son Christian loved trains. One day when he was 2.5 and we were watching a train go by, he asked me about all the words and supposed artwork scrawled on the boxcars. I told him it was graffiti. Sometime later, Christian, my pregnant wife, and I were driving from Iowa to see my family in New York. We stopped at a restaurant in Pennsylvania, and sitting at another table was a rough, tough-looking biker. Christian looked at the man in his rather large belly and shouted out, "Dad, is he pregnant?" "Shh!" I tried to hush him up, but when you tell a 2.5-year-old to be quiet, that simply means shout even louder. Then he saw all the tattoos on the guy and shouted, "Dad, look at all the graffiti on that guy." Well, I told my wife, let's get out of here before we get an escort of Hell's Angels on the way. Sometimes we get train stuff covered up with so much grime, dirt, gunk, and others supposed artwork that we just want to chuck the trains. Or maybe hire an archaeologist to determine what's underneath all the crud. Solomon wrote in Ecclesiastes 3:6, and Bob Dylan put to music, that there is a time to get and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to cast away. In this video, I'm going to share with you some simple techniques to help you fix all aboard train sets before you cast them away. In the first part of the video, I'll demonstrate some quick and easy repairs to get your American Flyer engines running well again. In the second part, I'll address some common problems with all aboard panels, especially the turnouts and the whistle panel, and different ways we can fix them. So, let's begin with the engine. And the first thing we're going to do is clean the wheels and the contact strips. We're going to start by popping out the wheels with a small screwdriver. Put the tip of the screwdriver under one of the metal wheel's flanges and slowly push the wheel up and toward the middle until it is released. Do this for all the wheel pairs. Then, using a Dremel tool or other means, clean the metal electrical conducting wheels. Then, clean the axles. Next, clean the metal strips that contact the axles. Finally, slightly bend up the metal contact strip to ensure it rubs against the axle. Then we're ready to replace the wheels. Now be sure when you replace the wheels that when you look at the metal wheels, one pair of metal wheels faces one way towards, say, the outer track, and the other pair of metal wheels face the other way. See the photo. Now let's get to the engine's motor. I always spray electrical cleaner into the armature of the motor. Whether it's a train engine, it's an accessory, whatever it is, it really works great on freeing up motors that aren't working very well. It's always good to do this slightly before you actually put the engine on the track. After that, check to see if the engine needs lubrication. If you do, use it sparingly, because if it gets on the track, it will impede electrical flow. I once had a Z gauge set, and I decided I needed to lubricate my engines, and I put too much oil in there, and just a little bit of oil on Z gauge tracks, and you got dead engines. Next, we're going to put the engine on the track and test it. If it doesn't run, take a deep breath and check to see if all the electrical contacts in the engines are connected. If you find nothing wrong and the transformer and track are okay, then seek professional help. I mean, an expert in trains, not necessarily a psychologist. Maybe you'll need both. Now let's get to the track, starting with the turnouts. Put one wire, which is attached to the base terminal of the transformer, on the outer rail, and then take the other wire, which is attached to the fixed voltage of the transformer, and put it inside the metal rivet that is between the rails at the end of the panel. Make sure that it is contacting the metal rivet really well. Then turn on the transformer and push the green and red buttons of the controller to see if the turnout points move to the curved track and the straight track. I found out with my Westerner set that I recently acquired that 2 of the 3 turnouts did not operate as they should. With one, I redid the wiring and got it to work well again. Unfortunately, the other had a dead switch motor, and I'm still having to wait here for a replacement. Just remember, these switch motors are from the mid-1960s, so you might need to have them move back and forth a little bit before you think that there's something wrong with them. Then we'll move on to the whistle panel. With my Westerner set, I tested it and nothing happened. I flipped over the panel and I looked at the wiring and I didn't like what I saw. I had to rewire it. Then I turned it on and yeah, it started to make a noise. A loud screeching noise as the motor began to turn on. It sounded like the gates of hell had been opened up. Well, I then got some handy-dandy electrical cleaner and sprayed it inside. The motor, that is, not the gates of hell. And then it worked fine. Another thing to check out with the panels before you're ready to assemble your all-aboard set is to make sure that the rail connectors are not stuck inside the ends of them. The smooth side of the rail of the connector between the rails should face down, and the flat tab in the middle should face up. Unfortunately, a lot of people put them in upside down and these things get pushed inside the rail and you might not even notice it when you try to connect the panels together. Once these rail connectors are upside down, they have a tendency to get stuck firmly inside the rails. This was the case with 3 of my Westerner panels. I used needle nose pliers to remove all of them save one, and none were easy to get out. The one that I couldn't get out, I had to bend out the actual rail a little bit to loosen up the connector, and then I had to pull it out and bend the rail back into place. Had to be really careful not to ruin the rail. Sometimes it seems like you need the jaws of life to remove these stuck connectors. It's a real test of your strength and even more so your patience. In my previous All Aboard video in this series, I said I'd show you the Westerner in action in the next video. Alas, I encountered a number of issues with the panels and I'm waiting for the seller to send me some replacements. Nevertheless, the replacements should arrive soon, and then I'll show you step by step how to assemble the Westerner in an easy way in the next video. Until then, thank you very much for watching this video. We greatly appreciate it. Please subscribe and click on that like button, and have a blessed day.